talking Piglet from 2025. This is directed by Andreas Catalina and is kind of a tangentially related movie to the Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey or Pooh-verse, whatever it's called. It has some of the producers are associated with that movie, although it doesn't actually directly follow on or is related to in story-wise. But it's the same producers, some of the same people kind of behind the scenes, and even uses some of the same props, including the kind of the Piglet mask. But it is its own story and its own continuity. And it's one of many of these low-budget British movies that come out of this block of producers that kind of follow a very similar formula. You know, a group of girls go into a house and the woods and are chased around by some type of killer, and it is the kind of the timid, softly spoken one that's always left. There's always a couple of characters that are American to obviously appeal to American audiences. It's the same kind of sort of formula, if you like, that we've seen many times come out of the UK with this kind of particular kind of block of producers. What is the story? Just to give you a little bit more context, well, it focuses on a group of girls. There is one guy, eight in total, one guy and 7 women, and they are going to a kind of cabin in the woods to celebrate one of their party's 21st birthdays. There seems to be a lot of Eastern European women in this cast for some reason. Doesn't really explain why, but there is. This happens to be this area where there is this killer which has been experimented on, and he's given this kind of growth hormone, and he's not a pig man, he's wearing a pig mask, and he's hacking up any kind of passers-by and eating them with this kind of some cohorts as well. And obviously this group of individuals come across his path. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So, let's discuss. So, this is a very cookie cutter movie. But is there any positives that we can look at here? There is. I will say this movie is fairly brutal in some of its kills. There is an attempt here to have a modicum of more gory kills than I would say a lot of its contemporaries. You know, there's this killer, he's putting hooks through people's jaws and things like this, and various kind of different sort of kills. And yeah, I would say that it's a little bit more kind of brutal than some of the others that we've kind of seen of its ilk. And there is there's some decent kind of practical VFX here. The kind of the Piglet mask is a silicone mask, which looks like it's the same one that was used in the original Blood and Honey. It looks pretty cool, and I have to say, you know, a ball man, so to speak, is you know, it's a pretty terrifying concept there. But some of the kind of the gore effects as well, you know, pretty good. I will say that they look fairly good for a low budget movie. They do use a little bit of CGI blood squirts and things, which possibly I think was unneeded, because there is a fair amount of practical gore as well, but I don't know why the decision was taken there, but who knows. So yeah, so some reasonable gore there. This also has a little bit more titillation than some of the other kind of movies that come out here. This group of girls, and we get a kind of lesbian love scene in the hot tub. There's a little bit of kind of like semi-nudity and things. So again, it's a little bit more sort of R-rated, I suppose, than some of these kind of tend to be. Other couple of aspects that I thought were fair. The actual music. I mean, this is the sort of type of movie where I often don't even kind of register the music, so to speak. It's sometimes very, again, cookie cutter. This one, I have to say, I thought the score was actually fairly good, you know, I thought it was quite well done and kind of was used kind of correctly in the right places, and was fairly good. And with a lot of these films, because they are produced by, you know, a conglomerate of producers that are very prolific, you know, repetition, you know, breeds this kind of professionalism, I guess, because it's just like, it's fairly well put together, I would say, on a technical element. I mean, this is a quickly shot, low budget movie, but because these these group of producers, these production companies and things like that, produce so many of these movies. Obviously, skills are learned, and I think this this kind of production is fairly kind of competent, at least on the kind of the technical levels, cinematography, camera placement, you know, sound design, things like that, all fairly kind of you know, to a reasonable standard. So it kind of looks like, you know, relatively kind of well put together movie. And if you just want to watch a film about a brutal kind of master killer hacking up young pretty girls, then again, this is a movie that I think would appeal to that kind of audience, because it does exactly that. It's an uncomplicated movie that is really just kind of like filling that need, so to speak. But what if you want a little more? So let's talk about what doesn't work in this film. Then this film, I think the writer is a guy called Harry Boxley. I don't know why they even have a writer, because it's the same plot on all of these movies. As I say, a group of girls go into a house or the woods, a woods and a house, and are chased around by a killer until you know, one is left. And it's always the kind of the meek, insecure, sensitive one that's always left. There's always a couple of like American characters here, so they can kind of sell it to the American audience. It's the same movie what we have seen dozens of times coming out from this stable of producers. It's like, how is there even a writer? It's the same script, just kind of repurposed with a different killer and different actresses. It's just kind of the same thing. So it is really just a very cookie cutter kind of slasher movie in that respect. It doesn't really kind of break the mold in any discernible way, and you know, it's just kind of more of the same ultimately. There are some things here that I found a little confusing. I wasn't sure. I mean, it's a British movie, and it's clearly got British cast for the most part, and you know, things like that. But they try to make out that it's clearly not Britain. They said that there's bears in the woods. We don't have bears in the woods in Britain. They say that we've got the death penalty. We don't have the death penalty in Britain. Things like this. The security guards have got guns. Things like this. It's just like, you know, this stuff doesn't happen in the UK. There's just not there. So it's kind of like, I think it's trying to be a bit vague about where it's kind of set, so to speak, but everyone, or most of the people, have got, as I say, British accents outside of, I think, one American, and the rest of them tend to be like some type of Eastern European. Again, maybe it would have been better to sort of set it in Poland or something like that, but who knows. But yeah, so it's, there's some things here that think, okay, well, that doesn't really happen, but whatever. Maybe that's kind of small fries. The killer is not as interesting as I think he could have been. I think he looks intimidating, but how fun would it have been to have a killer that looks like a small cute piglet, but maybe when it attacks you, it then is kind of monstrous, rather than having a sort of admittedly kind of scary looking, but sort of ultimately generic, you know, big guy in a scary mask kind of trope. Again, it's just like there's no attempt here to have any type of like identity for itself. As I said, the final girl you can see coming right from the beginning who that's going to be, and there's all that kind of manufactured drama between the kind of like the other characters to kind of pad out the kind of runtime and things like this. There's a whole bunch of other kind of tropes and kind of cliches that are kind of in this movie. As I've mentioned, you know, there is a degree of kind of CGI enhancement in regards to some of the blood that I think is a little bit of, you know, a sore point for, I think, for a lot of kind of horror fans. It's something I don't think it was certainly necessary in this movie, because they do have practical gore as well. So, and ultimately, it's, you know, the acting isn't particularly kind of strong. It's all a little bit kind of hokey and clearly kind of quite sort of quickly shot. And it's a little confusing where they've obviously, you've got the mainline kind of Pooh-verse movies, and then like, we're having these other sort of like public domain characters that are using the same props as the Pooh-verse films, but they're not actually story-wise connected to it. So it makes it for a little confusing. So it's more of the same. I don't think it's necessarily a terrible film, I will say. And if you want an uncomplicated slasher that just kind of like with pretty girls, a mean looking dude and some practical gore, there is stuff to enjoy here. And, you know, I think that will, you know, be fine for if that's all you're looking for. If you want any type of originality or interesting narrative, then this movie does not have that. As such, I will give it a 4 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.